updates. We have some new people to the group. Hopefully we are embracing some new participants and members, either through our career offices or new school districts out there. We have a bigger presence of DFPS, which we are super excited about, and to start collaborating and partnering more on a more regular basis. But so our mission statement, and this, like Aurelia said, went through the original creator of this collaborative group, Lucretia Hammonds. And so it's the Foster Youth Collaborative serves the Gulf Coast region as a network of professionals and community organizations to ensure foster youth and their advocates are aware of and have access to available services and resources which support young people transition into adulthood. And some of our goals for this group pre-pandemic was to have a regional foster youth resource fair. What that's going to look like, hopefully we can have it in the springtime, and it'll probably be a virtual or a hybrid type scenario. Produce outreach and promote the Foster Youth Collaborative at educational settings, fairs, community events, etc. To create a regional resource directory and bridge the gaps between foster youth and their supports with resources, including services for youth with disabilities, low-income students, and Social Security recipients. And just provide information to all communities. The major goal is to make sure that we are reaching our entire region, which is 13 counties. So we cover a large area. These are all of the school districts that we currently have on record. If you are a school district out there and you don't see your name on here, please write your name in the chat box and we'll make sure to include you. Same with any colleges. And this is just a little map to kind of show who we serve. Within our region, there's 76 plus school districts. That's not including, I think, the over 100 charter schools. So we really have a lot of youth out there that we want to make sure we're reaching. And with that being said, we have our special guests. I saw Ebony on here. I don't know if I saw Perry.
Perry is out sick today, but I'm here. Vanessa.
Okay, Vanessa. Okay, great. So we have Vanessa and Ebony, and I will just turn it over to you guys. Do you have a PowerPoint that you're sharing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I will stop sharing and have you go ahead.
Can you all see?
Yes, I can.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Because now I can't see you all, so just let me know what. And you see Anna, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't. Let me see if I can make this bigger, and then maybe I can see too. Nope. Okay. So what I'm going to be talking about today, with the help of my program director, Alina, and also Supervisor Vanessa, we're going to be talking about how children come into care at DFPS, what that looks like, and I'm going to go over a couple things, and then they will interject when it's their time. So today I'm going to introduce you to a little story. So I'm going to introduce you to Anna, who's 7 years old. We will talk a little bit about Anna and how she came into care, just so that you can get an idea of how this actually happens. But before we get to Anna, I'm going to introduce you to Anna's parents. Her mother is Shannon, who is 25, who aged out of care. She aged out of CPS custody herself. Shannon's mother, Anna's grandmother, was a heroin addict who lost custody of Shannon and spiraled out of control. She died from an overdose when Shannon was 15 years old. Anna's father is John, who's 40. He is or was Shannon's trafficker. Shannon loved him and she tried to make their relationship work. They've been on again, off again since Shannon was 14 years old. One night, Shannon and John got into an argument because John wanted to start introducing Anna, the 7-year-old, to the life and had some clients he wanted to show her off to. John knew he could make a lot of money selling Anna's virginity to a client, and this upset Shannon, who wanted a better life for her daughter. So Anna went to school and she told her teacher about her parents fighting and stated that her parents hit each other sometimes. And the teacher calls in a report to CPS. So 2 days later, a CPS investigator shows up to the home, speaks with Shannon, John, and Anna, who all say there's no issues going on in the home. There doesn't appear to be any immediate danger to the child at the time. The investigator leaves the home and determined there's no grounds to intervene any further at this time. She leaves the home with the intention of completing her investigation on the family, and decides that Anna appears to be at least safe for now. Shannon and John get into a disagreement about the CPS case and Anna telling the family business at school. The argument escalates to the point where John hits Shannon in the face. Shannon runs into the room to retrieve John's gun from the nightstand. Somehow he got it away from her and the gun went off. They were both startled by the gunfire, but when they looked up, Anna had been shot in the arm by the bullet. The police and ambulance were called to the home and Anna was rushed to the hospital, where her injury was treated. And both Shannon and John were arrested for assault of a family member and child endangerment. There was no family on either side that could be identified to take Anna into their home. Shannon has no living maternal family, and she never knew who her father was. Because of John's career choice, the agency was very skeptical of placing Anna with anybody he recommends until ensuring that they are an actual family member, out of fear that Anna will be trafficked by people or who pretend to be family members of John. He's already provided 2 sisters who turned out to be recruiters, which mean they find young girls to introduce them to the game and show them how prostitution works. And since there's nobody that they can trust, there was nobody to take Anna, so Anna was placed in foster care. I put up a little bit of statistics about general statistic about foster youth from the Foundation for Foster Children, so that you can kind of look at that and see what the statistics look like. Shannon and John lose their parental rights because they're both incarcerated. They're unable to engage in services to keep Anna in the family because they're incarcerated and unable to do so, and they don't have anywhere to take her to because they're both in jail. So Anna goes to a foster home. She's adopted by the first foster home she's placed in, which is great. At 12 years old, Anna starts dating a boy at school. She starts sneaking out of the house and smoking weed. Her foster parents can't deal with her behaviors and they relinquish their rights and send her back into CPS custody at the age of 13. Anna starts to run away from foster homes and continues to experiment with drugs. And for the next year, she's placed in 7 different foster homes. None of the homes want to keep her, so she becomes a child without placement. Alina, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so Anna here, and we're just gonna kind of be transparent. This is a real, it's a real case. It's, not taking place right now, but this is a real situation for our Region 6 area. We typically have a lot of older foster youth, and sometimes these are the youth that come into your classroom, or, with the Texas workforce, sometimes these are the youth that we're, needing additional engagement with. They have, kind of been a little here and there. And we're currently in a crisis in our region with limited foster home placements for our teens that are over the age of 14. And so it's been on the news as of early as last week, but we in our area and across the state have youth that are sleeping in hotels or in some of our community resource locations. And so typically when a youth comes into care, they're placed, the agency always typically wants to place that youth with family. And as Ebony mentioned, sometimes parents are really hesitant. They don't want to share their family business with their family. They're either ashamed or, or just not trustful of their family. So they would rather their child live with a stranger opposed to expressing that to family members so that we could try to keep that youth within family. But typically CPS, our policy, we prefer for that youth to be with a kinship or some type of close family friend, so that youth can have a connection. That is one thing that our youth that age out of care frequently say, is that they've lost those initial contacts. They've lost their sense of self. So some of the placement options that we look towards are kinship or relative placements, foster homes, and a foster home can be just a standard foster home or a therapeutic foster home. A therapeutic foster home is one that might have, more education, more training on how to work with a youth that has, more trauma, more needs. Sometimes foster homes aren't available, and so our youth are placed in an emergency shelter. That is a very temporary placement. An emergency shelter is a placement that would be, that a youth would be able to be placed in for 30 days up to 90 days. It's not it's not a stable placement. So you guys in the schools might see someone, I think they're typically marked as a homeless youth. They may come into your office and then they're gone, and sometimes that's because they're in an emergency shelter placement that the max is typically 90 days. And so the agency is always looking for a more permanent placement for this youth. But you may also start seeing some behavioral issues. They're not stable, they're just kind of here and there. Another placement option is a general residential operation. This is more of a typically not a home environment, but it's like a group environment where these youth are living and going to school. Residential treatment facilities are kind of our options that the youth needs a whole lot more hands-on support. If you're in the Spring ISD or Klein ISD area, there's a few options like Sheltering Harbor. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Sheltering Harbor, but that's a residential treatment facility. And for our youth that are over 18, there is an option called extended foster care. So extended foster care is where the agency, CPS, will continue to pay for a placement for youth. This placement could look like a college campus, say the youth has graduated from high school and they get accepted into Texas A&M or, some of the other schools. They're able to stay on campus and CPS covers their fees, their dorm. They're in a supervised independent living program and all they have to do is worry about school. But say that youth doesn't opt to go to, traditional college in that manner, there are shared housing opportunities. And so some of our SEAL placements look like a home. It's an actual home, and it's, say 5 or 6 bedrooms, and all of the youth live there and they have their own space. That's also covered by the state, and the eligibility criteria for that type of placement is that they need to be working or going to school. So working would be at least 20 hours per week, roughly 80 hours per month. Or if they're going to school, that would be they need to take at least 6 credit hours, 6 semester hours. So it's not a huge burden. We want to make sure that they have the opportunity to, focus on the things that they need while they're, transitioning into adulthood. But this scenario is typically what we would need. And, the collaboration that I think this group tends to want to focus on is how can we make sure this population gets what they need so that when they do age out of the foster care system, or even while they're still young adults in this system, how can we set them up for success, when they're no longer in the agency's care? How can we make sure that they can, live on their own and be productive members of society, although they've had the experience of being in foster care.
And then at 14 years old, Anna gets her PAL stage opens, her preparation for adult living stage opens. And I think that Vanessa is going to talk about that, right?
Yes. So the preparation for adult living program assists our older youth 14 up until the age of 21. So the different services that we provide at 14, we provide what is the Casey Life Skills Assessment. And what that does is it assesses the strengths or needs in life skills attainment for the youth. So they'll take it at 14, and once they go into their PAL classes at 16, 15 and a half, 16, they usually do another one in class. So the 6 life skills classes that we provide to them through the Hay Center is health and safety, housing and transportation, job readiness, financial management, life decisions and responsibility, personal social relationships, educational and vocational services. They also receive case management services from the Hay Center while they're in care or when they age out of care. If they age out of care, they also receive a transitional living allowance for completing their life skills training, and this is up to $1,000 in increments of $500. And they also need to be working or going to school in order to receive these transitional living allowance funds, as well as aftercare room and board assistance for the youth that age out of care between the ages of 18 and 21. They can receive up to $3,000 in assistance in increments of $500 per month. And they also need to be working or going to school in order to receive these funds. And case management services.
And just to give a little bit more information on, oh, sorry, I cut Vanessa off. Sorry. I'll talk again. Hold on.
You're good. So we also have different activities for our older youth. We have camps. We have a statewide teen conference. We have college conferences at Texas A&M San Antonio. We have aging out seminars throughout the year, which we also discuss topics like human trafficking, nutrition, financial management, self-advocacy. We have about 4 of them a year for the youth. And then we have the Youth Leadership Council, which is run by our youth specialist, who is a former foster youth. And he tries to engage current and former foster youth to come and talk about any changes and suggestions they have for the foster care system. They also have the opportunity to go up to the legislator to talk about what changes they would like to see with DFPS and So that's a great opportunity for our youth. And we also hold different conferences throughout the year. We have college conferences, we have back to school events, we have several conferences. Go ahead, Alina.
I just wanted to share a little bit of additional information regarding, the timelines of a CPS case. So Ebony mentioned, we get an investigation. An investigation is ruled out and is closed out fairly quickly, or it's determined that that youth may need, or that family may need some additional support. And so sometimes that family will be referred to our family-based safety services unit. And that unit pretty much, or that worker pretty much works hand in hand with the family to offer resources and additional support. Sometimes there's not a need for that youth to be removed from the home. There's just, additional services that we want to provide to that family. And so someone may present and share that they're, involved with CPS, but there could potentially not be a legal intervention that's taken place. Maybe the court, or there's just not a real urgent safety concern regarding that youth staying or being removed from that home. It's viewed that, we want to provide support and services to that family until that family gets to a certain point, and then CPS exits out of their case because they believe that the situation is safe. Sometimes that's not the case, and sometimes CPS requests intervention, legal intervention, and we name DFPS, or a judge grants us legal custody of a youth because it's deemed that the parent or guardian of that youth can't maintain a stable environment for that youth, and it is better in the court's eyes that youth be removed from that home. And so when that scenario happens, the case transfers to what's called a conservatorship worker, and that conservatorship worker works with that family from that point in the case, typically up until 12 months. That's the kind of typical case time frame for the agency, and that's not what we decided on. That's actually in the Texas Family Code. We have specific guidelines that line out how long CPS can and will be on a case, and so that family would be required to work services. And so if that youth came into care because of substance abuse concerns, the agency would typically refer that family for substance abuse services, or, random drug testing. If there's an anger management, anger issue in the home, we would refer that family to either counseling services or something to alleviate the concerns that the agency had when that youth was initially removed. And I see someone has a hand raised. JM, Miss Morrison?
I do, but I see that Anna had asked a question prior to me raising my hand, I believe. So Anna has, what is the participation like at the camp from our region?
Participation in the camps. So typically for the PAL events and camps, we have a specific amount of youth that we're able to send. And so for one of our camps, we can typically take 20 youth from our area. Sometimes it's a smaller camp, and so I know that we have youth that are going to San Antonio in a couple of months for, kind of to tour UTSA and get an understanding of what that campus looks like, and we're able to send 8 youth. So each camp, we're typically designated a certain amount of slots, and with those slots, we typically, try to get youth from this area and this area, and youth that are actually interested, but also youth that maybe have never had the exposure to college and to a college campus, to attempt to try to plant the seed so that they can see that on their own. Does that help? Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes. And I just want to be clear too. Our regions are the same. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so do y'all have, I mean, let's say 20 people are going to that one camp. Are they typically kind of from the same area, or are they spread all over the
They're
region?
spread from all over the region. And, you know, just to give some numbers, we have, I'd say, between 1,600 and 1,700 kids in this age range, 14 to 21, in our region. So
Okay.
it, I would say, would be a challenge to attempt to, we can't send everybody. We absolutely can't, but you know, it's where our partnerships with the school districts and also, you know, our community colleges. Sometimes our kids aren't going to go off to San Antonio, but you know, looking at how we can partner together to maybe do something on a smaller scale at some of our schools here.
Mhm.
You know, and kind of creating that same atmosphere here locally, so that the, you know, other 1,600 kids that weren't able to go have an opportunity to do something similar closer to home.
And not only do we try to include kids from all areas, all the counties, but we also try to include youth that are placed in different placements, in RTCs, in group homes, shelters, kinship placements, foster parents, to give everyone an opportunity to attend.
I have a question. So how are these numbers determined? Are they determined by a percentage of how many kids are placed per region, or it's just the even number for each region of the kids of the numbers placed for these camps and conferences?
So we're given typically Region 6, which is Houston and the surrounding area, Region 8, which is the San Antonio area, and Region 3, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Typically, we get the largest allotment because we're the larger regions, but it has to do with trying to get that variety, like Vanessa mentioned, of different youth, but also funding. You know, it's not free to send all these kids. And so 20 is typically the max that we would send, and it's an allotment determined based on the region and, you know, how much the state can, you know, afford to send everyone. Any other questions?
Thank you for sharing the story about Anna too, from beginning to end. I think that was super helpful for me. And I did have a question just in regards to that situation, and then hearing that Anna had to switch 7 times between like foster homes. During that time, is she getting like therapy or counseling? Is that provided by?
Yeah, during that time, our youth are referred for counseling services. You know, I will be honest and say a lot of our kids don't. Some do take interest and take heed to it. Some don't. I know that the foster home settings, I've had youth share that they don't feel like it's really a safe space sometimes, because that therapist typically will report back to the foster placement, you know, what's going on, and so they're not feeling 100% safe in that session, and so sometimes they're being more free at school. And I also, you know, want to share that not a lot, but we do have a lot of connections with teachers and that support away from what's going on in home and or in foster care, that they truly rely on that relationship that they have with the teachers, or, you know, a coach. I've seen, you know, coaches become, you know, a foster placement, get licensed and all of that so that they can take youth in. You know, there's not a lot of people that are signing up to be foster homes for 17-year-olds or for 16-year-olds. We have people busting down the doors to be that person for our younger kids and for babies. But unfortunately, our older kids are the ones that need the most support and are typically lacking in that support.
I also wanted to add, this is Ebony again. I wanted to add that Anna is not a real person. Like the situation is very real, and I took her from my experience with the agency over 7 years. But this person is not a real person. It's somebody I got off Google, but because we of course those things are private, and I wouldn't want to put any of our kids' business out that way. But it is a real situation, just so that everybody's aware.
Thank you. And are there statistics on, I don't know, how many of the foster youth are surrounded by or have been through like sex trafficking or human trafficking?
There's a lot of our kids are affected by that. For sure. I don't have the hard numbers. I know that in our region a few years ago, there was kind of a huge task force because Houston is a huge hub for human trafficking. And so I can try to find those numbers or some statistics. And when Anna sends this out, we can share that with you guys.
Okay. And then we did have a question from Ms. Spur. Are you actively recruiting foster parents?
So that there's always ongoing efforts to recruit for foster parents. If someone were interested, they would just need to contact what's called a CPA, a child placing agency. There are a ton in the Houston and surrounding areas that license individuals to be a potential foster placement. So there's a lot of agencies out there. You could likely just Google Houston Child Placement Agency and they would come up. And there's also, I just had a meeting last week. We're working with the Pelchin to come up with some videos for marketing to share with the public to try to garner more foster parents.
Oh, awesome. Let's see, Aurelia typed in here, Vanessa mentioned about the youth presenting to the legislature. How often do they have that opportunity to present?
The YLC usually goes, I believe, when the session's about to begin. So every 2 years they have that opportunity to go and speak with our representatives.
Thank you. All right, we have another question. So CPS is not licensing homes currently? Question mark. My niece went through the CPS program and at the end she was told to go through a foster placing agency.
So CPS does not have, we in the Region 6 area previously had our own child placement agency. We no longer do within CPS, but every child placement agency does have to be, does have to have, they have to have minimum standards and child care licensing standards. So as an agency, CPS is not, but there are child placement agencies around Houston that will actively license someone to become a foster parent.
All right, we have a comment from Ms. Cook. I know from research I did in the past that the process to become a foster parent can be lengthy and involves a lot of classes. Are there any exceptions being made due to the extreme need?
No, there is training involved. I think that, you know, the training and perspective is, I believe, 25 to 30 training hours. Each agency has the ability to increase that because, the reality is that we want quality foster parents for our kids. And, what someone mentioned on something last week is that, if if someone wasn't willing to go that extra step to get the education, then we might not even, want to deal with it. We've got some kids that have been in some very traumatic situations, and, dealing with a lot of loss, abandonment, a parent choosing drugs or a spouse or a boyfriend or, just different scenarios. And that's a lot to navigate. And it's a lot to be supportive to a kid that's going through a lot of that. And so, while I think the legislature is looking at some exemptions that could be available for kinship, for family that is kinship, I don't believe that they're looking at lowering or lessening the requirements for foster parents. No, I don't think so. And I would say, so I used to be in kinship, and with certain agencies, the process is also very dependent on the person that's interested in getting licensed. It is how quickly you turn in your documents, similar to buying a house. You can get your mortgage application sent to the loan officer very quickly, or it can be dragged out, quite a bit because you're not providing the documents that are being requested. And so I would say it's similar in nature. How quickly are you able to get through the classes? How quickly are you able to get your home study scheduled? Some of those depend on the family. And so it's not necessarily, the process that's lengthy. It's sometimes on, the availability of the individual that's interested in becoming licensed.
All righty. Do we have any other questions or comments or experiences that anybody would like to share? Not seeing anything. That was a lot of good information. And so will we be able to share that PowerPoint out with everyone as well? Is that something that will be available? Yes. Okay. Awesome. We had a couple people that asked that.
Well, and we also, and I'm going to send you just our brief overview so that there's some information. We would be here all day if we shared all of the information about the PAL benefits and things like that. So we do have a resource that actually the PowerPoint information that Ebony shared draws the information from. So I think that would be more helpful of a handout, and give actual websites for, anyone that they can go directly to that if there's questions or certain scenarios come up. So we will share that resource with you here in 2 seconds so that you can share it out with the team.
Okay, awesome. And I did have one more question. I'm sorry. I know y'all mentioned the sheltering harbor, and I just looked it up on Google, and I know that's specific to Klein ISD in Spring area. Are there similar facilities like that within the region? And maybe we could get a list of that, just to kind of help us when we're out, as we were spreading information and awareness. It seems like that's probably something that's beneficial to a lot of people.
And that information on the license placements is available on the public website, the public DFPS website. I will add I'll add the link to the information that I send to you so that that can also be available for anyone that wants to look. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know Aurelia is having some difficulty, some technical difficulty now. It's her turn. So she's not able to unmute herself. So I just wanted to open up one more time. If anybody had questions or comments, we will meet again next month. I had the date open. I believe it is October 11th. And we'll do the spinning of the wheel afterwards. Janine will do it with our little group since we are running short on time, and let everybody know what our topic will be next month. Thank you all for joining us again. Thank you, Alina, Vanessa, and Ebony. That was awesome information. And we will be sending a recap this afternoon as well as the recording. So thank you all so much and have a great day and be safe out there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.